So writing learning objectives. Hopefully by now you have your task analysis complete, and you are ready to write your objectives. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So you can see I have a table here. For those of you listening, I'm just going to describe it. But I have a table here on my screen. On the left-hand side, I have all my tasks, which were written out from my task analysis. And then on the right-hand side, I have an objective for each one of those tasks. So the key is here, and I'm going to go through how to write the objective on the next screen. The key is to make sure that your tasks are broken down as far as they can be, as far as they need to be, because you can obviously keep breaking them down further and further and further, but you have to break them down as far as they need to be. Once they're broken down as far as they need to be, you know that you need to write an objective for each one of those tasks. You also need to identify what kind of knowledge they are. So, for example, on my screen here in my task list, I have identify the capitals in the U.S. And that is a low-level knowledge. I like to break my knowledge down into low or high level. You might be using Bloom's taxonomy, Gagne's, Merrill's, whatever you prefer to use. I also have Dick and Carey's written on here, the verbal and intellectual. However you want to break it down. I prefer low and high. It just makes it easier for me to do it. And it's fine to do it however you would like to. You just have to pick some kind of taxonomy to go with. And then on the right-hand side, I have the objective for that. Now, the key here is to make sure that your objective, if your task is identify the capitals of the U.S., your objectives has to match that or correlate with that. So your objective has to agree with that. So my task is identify the capitals in the U.S. That is low-level knowledge. My objective is, given a list of states, the learner will be able to state the capitals for each with 100% accuracy. So my objective is also written at low level. My objective isn't some problem-solving level objective. It's written at low level as well. So how do you write these objectives? How do you do it? So that's where you pull, that's where you start from. You start from your task analysis. Now let's talk about how to write a proper objective. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, you always have to make sure that it's for the appropriate, level within the taxonomy. But how do you actually write the objective? So there are 4 key components that I like to see in an objective. I call it A, B, C, D. If you look online or talk to other instructional designers, the ABCD is very common, but some people have their own preferred method, but they all have the same basic information. ABCD, it's very easy to remember. What does that mean? A, audience, B, behavior, C, condition, D, degree. Audience, behavior, condition, degree. A, B, C, D. Very easy to remember to write your learning objectives like that. All right, so what does it mean? So A is the audience. That's who. Who are the people looking at this objective or taking this? B is the behavior. What are they actually going to do? This is where you write your action verb. Are they going to state something? Are they going to describe something? Are they going to evaluate something? Now, you can't use words like, they're going to understand. Understand is not a correct action verb. Why? Because ask yourself what understand means. What does understand mean? I've done this before where I've asked several people in a class to write down their definition of understand, and they all have a slightly different definition. In fact, they want to use the word understand in their definition. Go ahead and do it yourself. Try to define understand. But if I say the word identify, I'm very clear. That is a good verb to use to write an objective. One of the, I like to tell people, well, go look at like Bloom's taxonomy verbs and start there, because it's a really great way to just get an idea of the verbs you should be using and how to organize them by level. All right, so that's behavior. Condition. Under what conditions? So like underwater, given a pencil and paper in a classroom, given a map. What are the conditions? Using a calculator. What condition are they going to be able to complete this objective in, this task? And then the degree, how much success? So under, what success? 100% accuracy? 10% accuracy? What does success mean? The degree. All right, so then I have an example here. And for those of you looking at my screen, I have it color-coded so you can see where the audience fits in and such. But for those of you listening, I'll just describe it. So My example objective: given a map of the United States, the learner will be able to identify the state of North Carolina with 100% accuracy. I'll read it again. Given a map of the United States, the learner will be able to identify the state of North Carolina with 100% accuracy. All right, so who's the audience? Given a map of the United States, the learner will be able to, the learner. The learner is the audience. What's the behavior? Given a map of the United States, the learner will be able to identify. The behavior is they're going to identify. What's the condition? Given a map of the United States. So they're going to be given a map of the United States. That is the condition. What is the degree? What's success mean? Given a map of the U.S., the learner will be able to identify the state of North Carolina with 100% accuracy. Success is 100% accuracy. Now, so that's very easy. And this is a very simple, low-level learning objective. They get more common as you write more. Some common mistakes I see people have. One is probably the biggest mistake is people try to write an assessment question out of an objective. Don't do that. It's an objective, not an assessment. You write your assessment next. All right, next thing I see people do. They write multiple objectives for one objective. No. Each objective should be one thing. Look at the task. If you're writing multiple objectives in one objective, you're not using your task analysis. You didn't do your task analysis correctly. It should be broken down so that it's one thing. So one objective. You should have one action verb there. You shouldn't have multiple action verbs. Objective is one sentence, not 7 or 10 sentences. An objective is one sentence. That's another mistake I see beginners do when they start writing a learning objective. It's not as easy as it looks. All right, as you get more experience writing objectives and you're doing this for a client, some of the things you can do, I don't write like the audience for every single objective, because specifically, like if I'm doing this for a client and I'm creating my objectives, we know it's the learner. I don't need to write the learner in every objective. If it's just going to be 100% accuracy for everything, I may not define the degree. So it just kind of depends on the situation, but I always have the behavior and the condition. And for those of you who are new, you should always have the audience and degree in there as well. And that's how you write a learning objective. Thanks.